Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Shaun here for the Natural Gamers, and today I'm gonna do something a little special, a little different. It is the 15th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII, of its American release. That's right, kids. It's been 15 years. And to help me talk about it, I'm gonna talk about it with my friend here, Tom. Say hi, Tom.
Hey, how's it going?
See, Tom, this is the thing about doing things like this, okay? You're actually speaking to people in the future from the past. You see, because we're here right now. This is our present, but by the time this gets uploaded and people listen to this, it's gonna be the past. Okay, so just keep that in mind and don't freak out about the future, people. That's cool.
Absolutely.
Abso-fucking-lutely. So, anyways, yeah. So it's 15 years ago. Final Fantasy VII came out.
Yeah, I was in 7th or 8th grade, one of the two. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's pretty kind of crazy to think about it, actually. Actually, that was when we first met. Tom and I have known each other since we were in high school. We went to high school together. But when we first met, actually, the first time, I think one of the first things we ever talked about was Final Fantasy, actually.
I believe so, it was.
Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, because we went for, he was new at school. And, yeah, and we ended up kind of just, clicking on that level, I suppose, as far as, mutual interest or whatever. It was the Final Fantasy series. And so when Final Fantasy VII came out, were you already into RPGs and stuff? Were you already into that that genre and stuff? Because for me, it was my first what's considered a JRPG now. Final Fantasy VII was the first one I ever played.
Yep, same thing with me.
Same thing with you.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the marketing of the game that made you aware of it, or did you just happen to stumble on it?
I saw the marketing for it, and then some people I went to school with would talk about it, and eventually I think my brother played it before I did, and then I tried it out.
Then you tried it out?
Yeah.
See, for me, I totally randomly stumbled on that. Before the marketing and stuff, really picked up, remember, because on Toonami, all the time, they would have the commercial for it.
Yep.
I think by that time, I think I might have owned the game, actually, by that time. Because I stumbled on it. There was a little local movies rental place. They had a little video game area, and I just thought the cover looked cool. Just because when you're 12. Well, yeah, no, I was 11. I was 11 when Final Fantasy VII came out. So that would you were 11 too.
Yeah.
I guess we were both 11.
Yep. Sounds about right.
Pretty wild stuff right there.
Yep.
But I don't know. There's something about that. Have you played it at all recently?
I have not, I don't believe.
Yeah.
Maybe 3-4 years ago.
Was it the last time you played it? Was it with me?
It probably was.
Yeah, because we replayed the last disc.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had all these random save files from the game.
Yep.
Because I was weird like that. I would have hoarded. Well, we were spend the afternoon watching Hoarders. But I would hoard my Final Fantasy save files. I'd have these most random ass ones, just all over the place. But anyways, so just for me, it was my first JRPG. Because I think at the time I was more of a computer oriented gamer. If I were to play games at all, I was Doom and Duke Nukem and StarCraft, Warcraft 2, stuff like that. That's kind of the stuff I was into. Oh, actually, StarCraft, I don't think was even out yet.
Yeah, I started out mostly... Well, actually, I think the first thing I played must have been regular Nintendo.
Yeah, me too. No, that was the first thing I ever played.
And then Super Nintendo, and then I got more into the computer games. Computer games
later, huh?
Yeah.
So, what did you think, when you first played the game? I mean, because it's something, it is, it's a weird thing because I still have such a sense of fanboy-ish feelings towards that game. So what hooked you when you first played it? Because it was for me I don't know if it was just the fact that it was nothing I had ever played before.
Well, when I played it, it was still considered extremely good graphics, really cool.
Oh yeah, it
videos,
was. Yeah,
really high.
Well, if you think about the leap from Final Fantasy VI, a Super Nintendo game, to Final Fantasy VII, which was this very big, very cinematic, presentation with a really deep and maybe even a little bit convoluted storyline.
Not to, of course, not to offend Final Fantasy VI fans, as there are many out there.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. I mean, Final Fantasy VI is a fantastic game. It's a great game. It just wasn't. I played those ones after. Like I ended up playing 4 and 6 because I never played any of the other ones, but I played those way after the fact. The 7, like I was 11 years old, and like that's what got me. Because there are other people out there that are like snobby about that.
Oh yeah, they only play the Super Nintendo ones.
Yeah, and they think like Final Fantasy VII over the years has like there's like a huge backlash against it of like people saying it was overrated and shit like that. And you know, because it's not a perfect game, it's not. Especially with hindsight, you can look back and be like, well, you know, there's things that are wrong with it. Like, but at the time when you first played it, though, like, what was the hook? Like, what like really got you into it? Was the aesthetic? Was it like the storyline? Did you just kind of like because that's kind of for me it was like the storyline, like because the way it just wham bam like kind of just starts. Like I think it's got one of the best video game openings ever. Like as far as like you're immediately invested in the story.
Yep.
But they do it in a way that it's not confusing. But what are your thoughts?
The aesthetics probably brought me into it, but then the storyline was really kept me into it.
Yeah, it kept you going, right?
Kept me going all the way through the game.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just it was very impressive, very kind of an epic storyline.
Yeah, it was, and like, but. Like the way that epic storyline like mirrored by like just how massive the world felt and everything like that, you know, because when you get to travel around this like this really kind of large area, right? Mm-hmm. Like that was really cool. Like for me, like because I'd never played an RPG of that nature before, so like I don't know, I was just like so blown away like the first time. Like when you get out of Midgar, when you finally because. Like when I was playing it, the first time it was back before I think I got like Game Pro and stuff, but I would have had no reason to like look into Final Fantasy VII. And it was before the days of the internet and stuff, so I get to play that game completely unspoiled actually. But was that a big surprise to you, like when you actually left Midgar? I mean, because like I thought like you would think that the whole game, and it would have been fine, is going to take place in that type of area, which is fairly like linear and.
Well, I think if I recall, I think I watched my brother play through a lot of the game before I ever played it myself.
Oh, really?
I did know some of it ahead of time.
Yeah. What about Aerith? Aerith's death?
I believe I knew about that because I watched my brother play through that part of the game.
What a son of a bitch!
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but you got to experience it But you still got to experience it with fresh eyes. Like you didn't have somebody beforehand be like, "Oh, Aerith dies. It's crazy."
No.
So I mean,
I was watching the actual.
Yeah, you were actually watching the game, the play. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I don't know. Like I don't know. Do you think it holds up?
I think it does. I mean, the probably the technical graphics and stuff probably don't, but the storyline still holds up. I think if they ever did a up-to-date remake of it, which they've been teasing for years,
been threatening to do,
I think there'd be a lot of people. I think
everybody would go out and buy it.
Yeah, especially at least fans of the original game. I think the concern is that it wouldn't appeal to enough, not people that aren't necessarily hardcore fans of the original game.
See, it
wouldn't make enough money.
Well, I think everybody would buy it. Like, whether or not they were big fans or not, I think everybody would buy it. I think curiosity would be, like, one thing for a lot of people. And then there's an entirely new audience, because this game is, it's the 15th anniversary. It's 15 years old. There's, like, a lot of people actually out there that would not be aware of, like, really... I mean, they might have heard of it, but they never would have had played it before. I think the real reason why they don't do a proper remake is that they're afraid that they're going to fuck it up. Mm-hmm. Because, like, you can't do a straight... It would not be smart to do just a straight-up remake of the game. Like, I think you have to, like, kind of maybe modernize it, like, add, like, certain modern accoutrements and, like, change some of the battle system stuff. I mean, because the thing about, like, Final Fantasy VII, which was a little bit different than the other ones, because the other ones had, like, job systems and stuff like that, but this one didn't have that. Like, you had, like, the only, like, defining quality a characters had were their limit breaks. But other than that, it really just depended on what materia you equip them with. Because everybody else was kind of like just a blank slate, like pretty much. That's pretty much what they were. And you could kind of decide what type of character you wanted them to play as.
Well, I think there's been a lot of changes at the producer of the game too. Isn't the original, if I recall, the original creator of Final Fantasy is no longer with.
No, he left a long time ago. Because Final Fantasy VII was kind of like the start of like a new team working on Final Fantasy, and then they made, and it's still the same people that were worked on Final Fantasy VII are still the people that work on the series today.
It seems like after Final Fantasy X, the popularity started to dwindle, and
it kind of like
the quality of the games started to go down a little bit.
Well, I know. I mean, 12 was really good because 11 was the online, the MMO.
Which I can't say I've ever played them.
I've never played the MMOs either, but I know they have their fans.
Yes.
But I'm just not into MMOs. Even if it's Final Fantasy, nothing about it like ever appealed to me.
Yeah.
12 was actually a pretty good game. It's a little weird. It's like a single player MMO. Like they tried to do something like really new, but it does have like kind of a pretty engaging story. I actually just finished 13, and I'm about to start playing 13-2. But 13 is kind of a bad game. It's not a very fun game. I played it. I felt like I was playing it out of obligation because I've played every Final Fantasy, every single player Final Fantasy since 7, or so, like from 4 up. I've played, and I've beaten. So I felt like I was It felt like it was a drag the whole time. The story's crap. But anyways, we're not talking about that.
Well, I think Final Fantasy, particularly around when Final Fantasy on the PlayStation 1, 7, 8, and 9, the JRPGs were kind of at a...
That was a boom. Like it was
a boom.
I mean, it was because of 7.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 was more popular than like a lot of people that played that. Like, were not your typical JRPG people. Like everybody knew about that game, and everybody played it at the time. It was like a big thing. I mean, like even had like I think Coca-Cola ads and stuff like that. Like, I remember like kiosks or just like those like posters and stuff. Them holding like Coke cans and shit like that. And I remember it just being everywhere. I remember seeing commercials for it like all the time.
Yeah, it was definitely. I do remember the original commercials that showed some of the
CGI
stuff, and
saw the big explosion with Barrett on the Highwind.
Yep.
Like that profile shot.
Yep. And I remember that being pretty cool.
Back then, those CGI and I think every Square game actually did that. Like their CGI stuff was like awesome. You really like kind of captivated and blown away.
Well, and I think it's obvious that no game that they ever made. I mean, the fact that they then went on and did that whole compilation of Final Fantasy VII with all the expansion stuff to it. I mean, whether or not you like the stuff, some of it's better than others, but you don't see them doing that with any of the other games.
No, they don't. They don't. I mean, like you said, the compilation stuff. I mean, they made it their own CGI movie for Final Fantasy VII, like the Advent Children. I mean, like it has a larger fan base, or at least a larger awareness, I think, than any of the other Final Fantasy games, for better or worse. But I don't know. I think. Let's take a step back a little bit. We're getting super ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the game. So the storyline, still pretty good.
Yeah,
I think so.
I
think being older though, I think Sephiroth is kind of like a weak villain in certain respects, I guess. Although because of all the compilation stuff that was released and all the extra things like character information you have now, like it filled in a lot of the gaps that are, because Sephiroth is a very mysterious character. Even some of his motivations are slightly mysterious. That what he wants to do about just destroying the Earth.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff wasn't made clear.
Part of it was also poor translation too.
Yeah, it definitely was, because I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think there've been further haven't there been
Retranslated
versions?
I don't think so.
No?
Not, like, sold to the public, anyways. Although, like, it was just recently... It was released on PC. They didn't have a new PC version of it.
Is it a new translation of the...
I don't know if it's a new... I don't think so. I don't know. I didn't hear anything about it. I know you can just... I think it's... I want to say you can play it in high def, and it has achievements. And now they have this thing called the character booster button. So if you just want to play through the story, you just max out all your characters. Stat max.
Wow. It's actually a pretty cool option.
It is if you... Yeah, because I think... Because it is...
If you're not interested in going through the grinding.
Yeah, if you don't want to just sit there and fucking grind for 30 hours of your gameplay, you know? Yeah, especially for people that are just old fans that just want to play the game again.
Exactly.
Like, play through the story again.
Just play through the story.
Yeah.
Of course, now you can go on YouTube and pretty much...
watch
somebody play through the whole game.
I don't like doing watching the playthroughs of, like, RPGs especially. Because, like... I don't know, like, there's something about, like, I don't know, I feel like I should just be playing the game.
Yeah, I know, I see what you're saying, and
but
you don't really have any control of what's going on.
I watch Let's Plays sometimes, if it has, like, good commentary. Like, I like a Let's Play with commentaries. Like, if it's just a plain Let's Play with nothing extra, then I'm just like, well, I don't know, I get bored. I do. Because even if you're like playing with your buddy, like watching somebody play, like you're still sitting there physically with your buddy playing the game.
Exactly.
And you're chit chatting while you're playing. So it's
whereas if you watch it on YouTube, it's just it's like watching a movie.
Yeah, for like 12 hours.
12 hours, exactly.
Although I don't know if there are any full playthroughs of Final Fantasy VII out there. There's
a really long one that it looks like goes through most of the game. But it's got 40 or 50 something parts, I think. Oh, because it's only certain snippets at once. Because I believe I think there's probably a length limit on
YouTube. No, not anymore.
Oh, there's not.
Well, if you go through a process, like you just gotta like request the time thing, so you can go as long as you want now. And it's like it used to be only available to certain people. Now it's available to kind of like everybody. But yeah, I mean, the story is like it's fairly unique. I think I think Cloud is like one of the most interesting Final Fantasy protagonists. I actually do. Like I don't see him as like some whiny like bitchy guy like a lot of people do, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's maybe retroactively what they turned him into. Like turn him into like the super emo dude, but I think like that is a really interesting thing because I mean it does have that classic like just trope of any like hero story where the hero doesn't have any memory at the beginning of the story or whatever. Yep. Like he's got an amnesia, but the interesting thing about it, he doesn't have amnesia. He actually just thinks he's a different person.
Exactly. Thinks he's a different person. Who you pretty much
Zach,
that's right. And then I think there's a whole game that's devoted to
Crisis Core.
Crisis Core, yeah.
Yeah, I have it.
Me too.
On PSP?
PSP.
It's not a bad game. It was okay. Okay. A lot of those like Final Fantasy VII compilation things kind of like everything feels like it's fan fiction.
Exactly.
And it's just like
even that CG movie's kind of like
Advent Children is come on. So like when they're
the whole thing is fan service.
It is. And like in some of it, like Advent Children could have been like a good. I think they could have done something interesting, even with like kind of the storyline they went with. But like actually, the fact that they brought back Sephiroth and like the most weirdest like convoluted, like you're like really like.
Well, I think they just figured that if we don't have a battle with Sephiroth, it's not going to be
then Final Fantasy VII. Then it's not Final Fantasy VII. I actually kind of would wish they would just have like done a version of the game story. Just do that story.
Yeah,
like
it would have been a lot longer CG movie, but still, it still would have been pretty good.
Actually, I wish they would do like a proper anime series, like Final Fantasy VII the anime. I think that would be fantastic. That would be awesome because I would love to watch that in that format.
Yeah, there's a lot of games out there I wish they had done that with, but never did.
Like what?
Some of the other Final Fantasy games, particularly.
Oh yeah, I think because there's those stories definitely are like good enough that you want to just sit back and enjoy them without having to play a game all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know. But like I don't know, what's your favorite character from the Final Fantasy VII?
As far as playable characters?
Yeah.
We can't beat the Omni-Slash.
Well, don't even mean for like ability.
No,
I
know what you're saying.
Characterization. Yuffie.
She's pretty badass.
Goddamn thief.
Yeah.
Materia hunter.
Yeah, you don't want to piss her off.
Did you ever do her side mission stuff, the Wutai?
Yes, I did.
With Don Corneo.
Yep. He's a very creepy character.
Well, that whole section of that game is creepy. Actually, let's talk about that. Remember, because that was the first time. I mean, 11 years old, and you're playing like this, basically like Captain dressed like a woman and try to seduce a man.
Yeah, it was. It's definitely kind of creepy. You feel like he's kind of like a pedophile.
Or a rapist.
Yeah,
this is like a rapist, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but like the process of when you have to get all the stuff, right? Because you have to go to that like the Bumblebee like kitty or the Bumblebee like prostitute place or whatever, and you basically, I think you get raped by a bunch of dudes if you go in one of the rooms. It's one of the rooms. Like the camera pans up, and then you see all those like word bubbles. It's like ouch. Cloud's like ow. Like and like they're like okay, bro. Like remember that?
I do, yeah. It's
and like because all the dudes are gay, like all the muscle guys.
Yeah, they are.
Because remember you have to go to do the squat contest to get the wig.
Yep.
And depending on how good you do, the better wig you get. Like I always, for some weird reason, like I always tried to get it so Don Corneo would pick me.
You thought he was
because I wanted to be, I wanted to be special.
Exactly.
I wanted to be the special Cloud girl.
Yeah. That's right, because he could pick any of them, right?
Well, yeah, depending on like the quality of the items you pick up for your drag outfit. Like that depends on because he'll either pick Aerith or Aerith and Tifa.
Yep.
And it's pretty similar. Although if you pick Cloud, there's this little thing where you have to like jump away from him.
Yep.
Yeah. Little tiny section there.
Tries to touch him in inappropriate places.
Yeah.
Just a creepy dude.
Well, that's the thing about the Final Fantasy VII. Like there's such a breadth of like just stuff in that game, like to do, like all the mini games, everything, side stories, the whole like breeding a chocobo, like to get the gold chocobo, like how much time you have to invest like to actually do that if you do it for real. And I did it for real back in the day, and it's a pain in the ass.
Fighting the emerald weapon underwater.
I never did that.
You never did that.
No, I never. I couldn't.
You never defeated the most powerful boss.
No, I never did. You used fucking cheat codes.
Oh yeah, I did. I wouldn't say that I am. I would say that my brother is much better gamer than I am.
In a natural sense.
Not
a natural gamer, huh?
Yeah.
What the hell you doing on my channel then?
I'm a failure.
No, it's but there's so much of that shit to do. Like that, it's kind of crazy. Like how much stuff they actually like added in that game. Well, you know what the real reason for like making those like what do you call them?
Side
optional bosses and stuff.
Oh yeah,
Emerald weapon, Ruby weapon was because the actual boss was easy. And like for people that really wanted like to be challenged in the game, because they had like this thing where they're like, well, we can't make. We want these games to be more accessible, and the way they pushed like Final Fantasy VII, like they wanted that to be a very accessible game. They wanted anybody to be able to pick it up and play it and finish it.
If I recall, the Ruby and Emerald weapons were also added into the American version. I don't believe, at least in the original Japanese version, I don't believe they were in the game.
Really?
At least I thought that's what it had said.
It might have.
I thought that's what it had said because I had the original strategy guide, Final Fantasy VII strategy guide.
Yeah, me too. The Brady games.
Brady games, and if I recall, the Emerald and Ruby weapons were add-ons for the American version.
Oh, okay.
At least that's what it said in there. I've never played the Japanese version.
Yeah, me neither. No real reason to.
No.
Well, I wonder, like, if the Japanese version was just more difficult, like all around. I mean, they have like a that happens quite a bit where their versions of things will be more difficult than the ones that come over to America. I guess there's a game that came out that Atlas put out last year called Catherine, and even like on the hard mode around, or like the hard mode here or in Japan. No, the hard mode in America is like the normal mode in Japan.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and like it's like a crazy, because it's a crazy like puzzle game, and but yeah. I mean, so like, I don't know. I think like the biggest like thing for me about like Final Fantasy, like what it like did, I guess, like how it informed me was just like it really introduced me to that genre, like.
Oh, absolutely.
In a very like wide sense, and it was a great time to get into that genre because of all the great RPGs that were out on PS1 and PlayStation 2, actually, for that matter.
Well, and introduced people to some of the old the older games that came out even before that. Probably they wouldn't have played if otherwise.
Yeah, they like Chrono Trigger and stuff like that. Like some of my favorite games, I never probably would have played.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did play Chrono Trigger very recently.
Yeah, you played it because you got the iPhone.
I have the iPhone version. I wish they did that with Final Fantasy VII.
Someday. You never know.
Yeah.
iPhone's got to be a little bit more powerful, probably.
Yeah, probably.
No, I mean, just that just something, I don't know. There was something about it that was, like, mind-blowing, I remember. I was just, like, just because of what it was tried to do, like, it was such an ambitious, like, game in a lot of ways. You know? And, like, it has some great, like, plot twists, and it has some great characters, it has some great relationships, like some great I really love the way the story plays out, and especially like we haven't talked about like the biggest plot twist, I guess, right? The Aerith dying.
Yeah, that was a pretty big plot twist, and I remember there was always this urban legend that you could
get her to live, right?
Yeah, you could either get her to live by doing something differently.
Yeah.
Or that you could, also that you could get the
materia,
the white materia.
Yeah, both false.
Both false. Simply because during the scene it falls into the water.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Actually, I think I remember even trying to get it.
Yeah.
Like, no, you can't. You can't. Trust me.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's even like a testament to like how like crazy good that game was, just because like. Or so how attached people were, like, because that's like almost like going into like denial, like, oh, no, there's a way to save her. You just gotta figure it out.
Yeah. And then of course there was black materia, which that was the wasn't that the source of Sephiroth's power?
Yeah.
And that's how you summoned the
meteor.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, if only he had to get that. If only you could stop him from getting it.
Yeah.
Which you do try to in the game.
You try to. You fail.
And you fail.
You fail. Well, that's like another I remember the revelation, like when you find out like who Cloud really was, when Tifa goes into his like memory scape or whatever you want to call it, and he's going like through all those. Remember, she has to go through all those memories.
Yeah.
And like piece together, try to put them back together, basically. What was the? You know what though? I'm a little foggy on though. Like, what was Tifa? Like, why did Tifa forget? Or did she not forget?
Yeah, I'm a little foggy on that too. I'm trying to remember.
I don't know if they ever really clearly explain it. I mean, they might. So. I'm sure there's a few, like a line of dialogue that, like, kind of like, oh, I was repressing it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or either that, or she just doesn't. She just acknowledges.
Woo! What you guys doing?
Hey, what's going on? You're being recorded.
Oh, fuck.
We'll be down in a second. Anyways,
that rude.
Yeah, no, I don't remember. Quick edit back. I don't remember. I mean, there must be like some, because maybe she does. She just remembers, and she just doesn't bring it up.
Could be,
or she doesn't know, because she doesn't know if he became soldier or not, right?
I don't think she does.
So when he comes back and says, "I was a soldier," she'd probably be like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, because I mean, weren't they more childhood friends?
They were.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, you know what it was? He hid himself from Tifa when they came back because he was just like a lowly soldier, like
That's
a lowly
right.
guard.
Yep.
There we go. Now we're cooking with oil, solving storyline mysteries. Yeah, so she didn't know, and it's like, and then isn't that how she figures it out? Because he tells them the story, what happened.
He tells the original. He tells
the one that when he's Zack.
When he's Zack, yeah. And then I think during that time when she goes into his memory, that's when she discovers how it really happened, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I just remember like that being such like an awesome, like riveting, just being like glued to the screen, like revelation. And the way they did it with like the music and like the heartbeat, like when Sephiroth goes fucking crazy. And he finds out what Hojo is doing and like that he was an experiment and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then of course you find out later that he's Hojo's son.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Where do you find that out? Is that
he says it when you go to the
in the game?
In the game,
when
you go to the cannon.
Oh.
When you're using the Mako cannon.
Yeah.
To he's gonna use it to give Sephiroth power.
Yeah.
And he reveals that it's his son.
Oh shit! I totally forgot about that. Wow, that's crazy. I
can't believe him and the mother donated him to be used in the experiment with the Genova cells. And injected with Genova cells as a embryo or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's why he became.
And the plot thickens.
That's why he became all screwed up.
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
Because regular soldiers were infused with Genova cells.
Yeah.
However, he was actually...
He has them inside his
He actually
structure.
has them inside his body.
Yeah. That's how come he can fly and shit.
Mm-hmm.
He's like goddamn Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Superman.
Absolutely.
Sephiroth. Get down with the one-winged angel. Yeah. That's my R&B tribute to One Winged Angel.
Yep.
And Sephiroth. That was a big thing. One Winged Angel for a little while.
Yeah, the game. Well, the music in Final Fantasy VII was also very good.
It's fantastic.
Nobuo Uematsu's soundtracks for Final Fantasy were always very good.
Yeah, and I kind of think like I don't know. I mean, maybe 6 is better, but like I think 7 is pretty fucking awesome. Yeah, just because it's fully orchestrated, like, and it's got like just so big and have like the world music. The first time you go out into like the fucking world, like dun 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 dun. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's awesome? Even more awesome? I got to see Nobuo Uematsu play live last year at MagFest.
Oh, he played live.
Yep, him and the Earthbound Papas is the name of the group.
Was that the?
And they fucking played.
Well, he plays. He was obviously on keyboard, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, but they have like a full band.
Yep.
Awesome.
Was because he has his own, right? The
kicked ass.
He had the what was it called? Was it the Black Mages?
Yep, it's the same band.
Oh, it's the same band.
I think there might be a few different members like switched around or something, but I'm pretty sure that it's the same band. And it kind of kicked ass. You get to hear like when I heard Final Fantasy VII battle music. Yeah, kind of almost blew my fucking mind. People started crying.
I think my brother actually went to. They had somebody who converted a lot of the of his pieces from different compilations for different Final Fantasy games, and created orchestrated versions of them and actually performed them live with an orchestra. I believe, too. I don't remember the person's name.
Well, it didn't say. Oh no, I know they did Final Fantasy VII. Like they did the soundtrack orchestrated. You could buy, right?
Well, you can buy. They have.
I remember you
can buy the regular soundtrack.
Yeah.
Which is just the
what's in game.
The compositions from the games, which is synthesizer.
Yeah.
But then you can also buy a version called, I think it's called Reunion.
Yeah, it is. That's what it is called.
And it's select tracks from the game plus the overworld music, Aerith's theme, and One Winged Angel redone with an orchestra, an orchestrated version of it.
Okay.
And I believe the same person that produced the orchestrated versions of those also went on to do they had a full orchestrated version of, or an expanded orchestrated version of Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack. I believe it was the same composer orchestrated that, and then also the orchestrated parts in Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Since some of that obviously is fully orchestrated,
fully orchestrated.
Recordings.
Yeah.
I believe Final Fantasy VII Advent Children was actually the last compositions that Nobuo Uematsu did for Square in general.
For Square in general. I know he's done with the series now.
Yeah. I think he was even done before that.
He was
brought him back to do that.
He didn't really want. He didn't even want to do 7 because I think 7's the last one he did.
No, for the games.
Yeah.
No, he did all the way up until.
Did he do it to 9?
I thought it was up until 10 or 11.
Really? Because I don't know. I thought he
did 7, 8, and 9.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure he did 10 as well.
Which is kind of I don't think either of those are like super actually as memorable as Final Fantasy VII's, at least in my mind. Like the scores for 8, 9, or 10 if you did it, or because the other ones like they're just not. I mean, like 8. Yeah, I don't really remember. Like nothing sticks out to me. Like I remember like the battle music and stuff. But
8 had that. 8 had that song where they had the Chinese singer.
The love song. When they're up in space.
Yeah, and then they had the ending. The ending theme of the game was kind of a reprisal of that.
Yeah.
But I think they all have pretty good soundtracks. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII was very good.
I think I think they're all good, right? Yeah. But I don't like Final Fantasy VII's is like super memorable.
Yes, it is very memorable. I believe I have a compilation that has all the soundtracks for Final Fantasy. It's very big with all the. They did a lot of they also did a lot of alternate versions of the alternate recordings of people like Final Fantasy IV. They had a Celtic version, and then for Final Fantasy V and VI they had some tracks that were orchestrated, and then again. Final Fantasy VIII, and they also had a lot of the games also had piano collections, I believe, too.
Yeah.
Both 7 and 8 had it, I believe. They did, actually. Yeah, they did. In fact, I stayed at a hotel. We go on this weekend trip to Quebec in March, and the hotel we stay at actually plays the Final Fantasy VII piano collection album.
In the lobby?
In the lobby.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
We're eating dinner at the hotel restaurant, and I hear the Final Fantasy VII battle theme on piano. I'm like, I think that actually is it.
Yeah.
And then I knew because then there was something else they played.
That was very specific.
Then they played Rufus's Welcoming Parade. Song. So it's about I think they have about 15 tracks they did.
Oh wow!
For that,
I have to check that out. I've never actually heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta check that out.
Final Fantasy VII piano collection, and then they have the Final Fantasy VII reunion, which has the 3 orchestrated tracks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I gotta get all that stuff. I used to have the reunion one, but that's all I ever had.
And then they had and then Final Fantasy VIII and 9 had similar arrangement, except I think 8 actually had a full. They actually had a disc where it was like 15 or 16 orchestrated songs from the game.
Oh, okay.
And then of course I have the Advent Children soundtrack, the music. Advent Children, the story is a little iffy, and then the whole, I don't know, the way they brought back Sephiroth.
No, that movie, that's a shitty movie. Yeah. Like, it is. It doesn't hold up as a movie. It holds up as fan service, and if you really, really love Final Fantasy VII and just need to see, like, more of those characters just doing things, then that's your movie. Because it's not a good movie. It's just, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's, like, at the time, I remember the first time I watched it, I was excited to be watching it, and overall I enjoyed it. The first time I watched it. So that when I was like, I guess it was 18? 18?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was with me, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was Japanese without any subtitles.
No, I had subtitles. The one you brought over had subtitles.
It did, okay.
Yeah. The first time I saw it was with subtitles. I probably wouldn't have watched it if there was no subtitles. Because I just like...
Well, the first one I had seen did not have subtitles.
Yeah, well, because you were bootlegging, baby.
And then they finally came out with a disc that did
fan subs, yeah.
Fan subs, and they were very questionable. And then they finally had the American DVD, and Blu-ray, which had the full subtitles.
Full subtitles and English.
And to be honest with you, I think the highlight of that movie now is the soundtrack. The soundtrack was very, very good in that movie.
Yeah, it is.
But other than that. And the animation was very good
for the time. Yeah, I mean that's the problem with doing like those CG kind of things. It dates itself incredibly. Like have you ever seen Spirits Within?
Yep.
I mean that at the time that movie looked fucking crazy, like photorealistic, right? And like there are elements of it that still hold up really well today, but overall, like you're like, ooh, that's.
Well, I agree with you. If they had done something like the animators of that had created one where they actually told the story of the game, I think it would have been much better. Because I mean, it was cool to see all those characters kind of alive and in an actual setting. But again, the story just it was just kind of a fan service where it was very kind of a lot of it was very predictable.
It was. There's nothing like surprising. The pacing was weird and like not exciting. Although I mean, if you watch the Redux one, the Blu-ray. It's like 25 minutes longer.
I have not seen. I own that, but I actually haven't watched it yet.
I own it as well. I'm not sure I've ever finished it. Because I started watching it, I was like, this is not very good. Because I hadn't seen it since it first came out, and then I watched it then, and I was like, this is not.
I don't even think I've ever watched it in English either, because when I had it on, I was obviously Japanese, and I don't think I ever watched it.
The English dub.
Yeah, I tend to prefer watching stuff with the subtitles anyway. Because I tend to think that the Japanese voice actors do a better job.
I think they do too, because it's more natural too.
It's more natural, whereas when you're trying to translate, it tends to and they just try to Americanize it a little bit too much. I remember some of the early. I mean, they've gotten a lot better over the years, but I remember some of the early anime dubs that they used to do back in the day were just terrible.
Yeah. No, they were. I think they're much more respectful now, and because some of the only animation houses or the the localization companies, I guess, like Funimation and stuff like that. There's only a few of them left in the country.
And Funimation was when they first started was terrible.
Yeah, and they were terrible, and now they're kind of the number one. Now they're go-to I guess people. Neon Genesis Evangelion is their bread and butter.
Yep.
But that's why they re-release it different versions.
Well, they started out their original Funimation's original bread and butter was Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
That's what they started with. But I guess you can only release. But obviously, they probably love that one because it's such a long series that you can just keep.
Yeah. Well, I think the way the trend of anime that has gone is better now because they don't make you buy 15 discs that are $25 a piece and you get 3 episodes on each disc. I mean that shit was so nickel and dime taking advantage of people.
I think they had something 50 volumes.
Oh yeah, didn't you have a lot of them?
I did because I used to. I still watch it. I collected the Dragon box sets that they did just recently for Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, did you?
And
did you?
But it's a lot. They do it a lot. I mean, now you can. It's a 291 episode series. It's a very long series. But the way they do it now, you can pretty much get it in 7 discs, seven sets instead of 40 something like it was before.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And but they're more affordable now.
Yes.
I mean, you can go buy a season of an anime show or a whole series for $40-$50. When I first got Neon Genesis Evangelion, when I got the Perfect collection.
Yes, I do.
It was $125, and that was cheap.
Yep.
Because they usually were $200.
That's a great.
That's ridiculous. They're nickel and dime. They're taking advantage of a niche fan base. By making shit cost that much.
think we're not recording.
No, we are.
We are, okay.
Pretty sure. Hold on. Yeah, but anime is crazy overpriced, or it was at the time. It's much more, I think, fair now. It's like, I don't know, but I'm not really into it as much as not that I don't think I ever really was. I was more of a, there are just certain ones I like.
Yeah, I would say so too with me.
Yeah.
My brother is a huge anime and gaming fan, and he's kind of drifted a little bit out of the anime, but is still very much into games and frequently goes to those PAX
East,
PAX Prime conferences they have every year.
Did he go this year?
He just got back from Seattle, actually.
Yeah.
He's a enforcer, which is the volunteers that help put it on.
Yeah. So yeah, why were we talking about anime?
I don't know. There tends to be a very talking about Japanese RPGs, particularly in Japanese games in general. There's always a connection because
there's I think a fairly large connection. A lot of the stories are very similar.
Yeah.
Well, the sense of humor, similar.
Yeah.
Which I'm not a big fan of the J-pop like sense of humor crap. Like I think it's either crude or like really childish and crude or just fucking stupid. I don't know. I never found it very funny myself.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever cracked a smile.
You never cracked a smile when Dragon Ball when the guy was looking at
people's panties and stuff. No, I don't think so. I was probably more just confused.
Yeah.
Like, what is he doing? No, actually, when I first saw that, when I watched Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, that stuff wasn't in there because it
was edited out.
The Toonami version on Cartoon Network. That's when I was watching it.
Yeah, he liked his filthy magazines.
Yeah.
But getting back to Final Fantasy VII, how many times have you bought it?
When I buy the computer version, it'll be 4 times, I think.
4 times?
Yeah.
I think I bought it twice.
Because I'm buying the computer version. Like,
they've had a computer version in the past, I believe.
Yeah, they did release it on IDOS. Released it on PC. And when it came out, I think maybe in like 1998, like a year later or something like that. And it works fine. A lot of people have actually modded it and like to make the more realistic looking character models and stuff. Which I tried to get to work one time, but like because I had the PC version for a while. As well, yeah, I had that as well. So, but I don't know. The new one is just a download only. It's like $10. I have it, yeah, because I bought it. Well, let me see. I bought it when it first came out. Yeah, and then I bought it again. I think a couple years later, like one of the greatest hits version or something like that.
And I seem to remember buying it once, being with you, and you buying it.
You probably were
more recently. Still a while ago now, but maybe 2004, 2005, 2006, something like that.
I don't know. I can't remember. I haven't rebought it since it was stupid expensive. I never paid like $100 for it.
Yeah, it's difficult to get now.
Well, the black label ones and like if you want an unopened one, it was really high for a long time. It's kind of come back down. I think it's more like regular now, or like $50 or whatever. But for a while, like it was like $120 or something like that, and like I was like, I don't know. And then they released it on the PlayStation Network, so I just rebought it on there because I don't have any of my disc copies anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and if you can get it on the PlayStation Network, you might as well.
Yeah, well, I got it on there just so I could play it on my PSP. Actually, I have all the PlayStation era PS1 Final Fantasies on my PlayStation from the PlayStation Network. I just rebought them all.
7,
I can't
7, 8, 9.
Because I will seriously, I play those to this day. Like I have
very good games,
old saves and stuff like that. Like now that I have on there, like I'm like 20 hours into each of those games right now. Like just over the summer, I would be like, you know what? I don't really fucking feel like playing anything new. I'm just gonna play some Final Fantasy VII. It's gonna be sweet.
Well, I think I certainly don't think now that JRPGs really have as much of a...
They don't have an audience like they used to.
Like they used to.
So they just dropped off, though. I mean, we're not getting a lot of them. I mean, they are still localizing and sending them over here, but it's not... They're, like, harder to find. And they're more obscure titles. Like, they're just... Like, oh, actually, you know, the PSP was like a crazy RPG, like, kind of system. There's a lot of good RPGs on there. Like, even, like, there's a few, like, really good remakes, like Persona, like the Persona series. They did, like, PSP versions, and then they did Lunar, Silver Star Story Complete. They did put a version of that on the PSP.
I think I remember seeing that, yeah.
Which is really, I have it myself. It's really good. There was a lot of good, like, RPGs, like, JRPG style stuff on the PSP. It just wasn't in the mainstream anymore, because, I mean, PlayStation 2, there were so many goddamn JRPGs on that thing. That's all I ever played. I mean, like, between, like, Xenosaga and Dot Hack and Persona and just a plethora of others, fucking Star Odyssey and Unlimited Saga. I don't know. I mean, so many.
I think a lot of the big games recently haven't a lot of the more recent games been American made. I'm trying to think
of RPG.
Yeah.
Well, most of them, because now that's kind of like what the trend is now, is more like games like Skyrim, Oblivion, like the Elder Scrolls series, Fallout 3. Like, you know, those are the ones that are much more popular now. Borderlands is like a new one. They've kind of replaced in a lot of ways those other games. People get tired of them, basically. And which I understand, because a lot of those JRPGs are very similar to each other. Like, the stories are all kind of the same. You know, there's not as much uniqueness going on in that world. Although recently, the Wii, actually, they released a game. Finally brought it to America, which it was like stuck in localization limbo for like 2 years, called Xenoblade Chronicles, and that is a fantastic modern JRPG. Actually made me glad I owned a Wii, because I never used that stupid fucking thing. So,
I'm trying to. Now was I should know this, but I don't. Was Mass Effect a American made or a Japanese made game?
No, it's American. It's BioWare.
It was, okay.
Yeah. BioWare, same company. They made KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic 2.
So I know there's been a lot more popular American games.
Well, yeah, actually Mass Effect is very more of like a Western RPG style. Yep. Fantastic games, actually. I really, really loved the Mass Effect series. I know not everybody does, but I don't know. Yeah, but I happen to really enjoy them. I think but they're not really good RPGs, though. Like, they're more like action games, like masquerading as an RPG.
Yep.
You know, they're not. It's not the same. Even like games like Skyrim and Oblivion, like the Elder Scrolls games. Those, I mean, they are RPGs. They are. But I don't know. But they just play more like just action games to me. I don't know.
Well, I think the fact that I think with the explosion of MMOs too really changed the landscape of RPGs, because
that's true.
I think MMOs have really kind of replaced. Not entirely, but I think a large part have replaced single player RPGs.
Yeah, for a lot of people, I think. Although MMOs are starting to get the backlash. MMO backlash is happening because a lot of the big high-profile ones are like buckling under, like, people don't want to pay the monthly subscription fees and stuff, and because a lot of them there's a shit ton of free-to-play MMOs out there. You know, all varying quality, of course, and they're usually something like a pay-to-win type scenario where you can buy booster packs and stuff. Like, that's what costs money. But, yeah, because the Knights of the Old Republic, the new one, BioWare, EA, Electronic Arts, like that new MMO that came out last year, is already, like, suffering. Like, they already lost, like, 50 or 60% of their subscribers. Because... And especially that game. That game was like playing a single-player game that I was paying for. Like, that's what it felt like. so I didn't re-up my subscription.
Then you look at World of Warcraft, which I mean, I've never been a fan of it, but I mean, I don't think you can argue that World of Warcraft is probably the most successful game ever made in terms of.
Probably is.
Problem in terms of amount of people playing it, and
it's still It still has the most subscribers, I think, of any MMO.
And what's been going over 10 years?
Something like that, yeah. There's something about that. I mean, there's a simplicity to that game, and they've constantly supported it.
And they've new
patches and updates, expansions. They're having a new expansion that's like coming out in a couple weeks, I think. Mists of Pandaria or something like that. I don't know. I never got into them. Like, I never did. My brother did, though. I remember Ryan. Ryan was into World of Warcraft for, like, a couple of years.
Both of my brothers were at different times.
Yeah. I just can't get into them. I can't get into MMOs. Just can't do it.
Well, they require
amount of, like, teamwork and dedication that I'm not comfortable with.
Well, I mean, most of the people that I've seen that play World of Warcraft, to be good at it, your life has to be World of Warcraft while you're playing it.
Oh, if you want to be like a weird snob, like World of Warcraft player, probably. Yeah, because they're out there. They're out there. For goddamn video game snobs pissing on people's parades. Although I do want to try out Guild Wars 2, though. That does look kind of cool. But it's more of an independent experience. But yeah. Anyways. Let's get this back to Final Fantasy VII somehow.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII segue now. I don't know. I don't know. I guess we probably wrap this up. Chit-chat for about an hour. What are your final thoughts on on Final Fantasy? Actually, no. Before we do final thoughts, do you think they should make a remake?
I have mixed feelings on that. If it's gonna be good.
Yeah, if it's gonna be good, yeah.
I don't want it. I wouldn't want them to do it and have it be disappointing. I know they had a big tease with the PlayStation 2 where they were gonna remake Final Fantasy. Well, they were gonna remake Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 for PlayStation 2, and then that got shelved.
Yeah, then they dropped that hard.
Yeah, and people were like, "Wow," but that would have been nice. But
it would have been cool.
And then everybody, when they did the big tease with the PlayStation 3 demonstration where they had the first scene of Final Fantasy VII redone,
people lost their shit because they thought they were going to do the next gen Final Fantasy VII,
which of course never materialized.
Did not happen.
But I think a lot of the people that were involved with Final Fantasy VII are no longer with Square Enix, so I'm not so sure it would ever happen at this point.
Well, I mean, there's all different. You hear different things. I think because Square Enix is in like a lot of financial struggle right now. Like they've had some serious like hiccups in the past few years. When their second MMO, Final Fantasy XIV, was like such a disaster. They had to give like people like free time and shit like that. Like they released like a totally buggy, just not working game. They lost tons of money with that. Final Fantasy 13 and 13-2 were not super popular. Did not even. I think 13 might have sold okay because just people were like, oh, it was a next gen Final Fantasy game. But for some reason, it's the most unpopular of the Final Fantasies, right? And they just push the shit out of it. The third one is coming out because they did 13-2, and now they're doing like Lightning Returns, which is the name of the main character. Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy 13. And that's the one that they're pushing hard, like as a franchise. The Krista Novalis, whatever.
Well, I think, and that's probably because the people that are there, the people that actually are still there, probably that's what they've done. That's what they produce. So.
Well, Final Fantasy 13 had a like extraordinary long development. Like it was like 6-7 years in the making, and they made a gorgeous looking game. It's probably one of the best looking video games ever put out on a console. Maybe only beaten by Uncharted 3, if you've ever seen Uncharted 3. Because that's probably the best game I've ever seen on a console. But Final Fantasy 13 had that distinction for a long time because they were able. That's what they kind of focused on, was like the universe, the way things looked, like making everything look beautiful and unique and stuff like that. Where they dropped the ball is like telling a story and like having it engaging and fun. And it's like it's very linear game. Like you just walk in a straight line for the entire game and fight enemies.
I think the last of the classic Final Fantasy games was Final Fantasy X.
I think so. I'd agree. I think that's. I don't know. I'm hesitant to add 12 to that list because even 12 felt like a totally different thing. It didn't necessarily. Even 12 didn't really feel like a Final Fantasy game to me. It was a good game. It was a very enjoyable game, but I don't know if I was. I wasn't in love with it though.
11 wasn't a total bomb, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't as successful as they wanted it to be.
It has its defenders. You know, some people really like it. I don't know, but like if they ever make a remake though, like I don't know, like I'm kind of the same way you feel about it. Like I'm kind of like split down the middle. Like, is that a good idea? Like, because the biggest thing is like, what if they just don't make a very good game?
Well, and if you can't get, I mean, there's so many people you'd have to bring back to really. I mean, if you didn't, I mean, people wouldn't. If you didn't have Nobuo Uematsu doing the music, people wouldn't accept it.
Well, I think they would
bring back the same writing staff, and
I think they would. I think that would be. It would be a good thing. They could add to the story, take stuff out that's confusing, whatever. They could improve upon that, especially with the newer technology. Things would be a lot clearer, more straightforward.
I think, if you don't have the people that really made Final Fantasy VII involved, I don't really see. That's my only concern.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know.
There's a lot of those people have moved on, at least from what I've heard.
Yeah, of course they have. I mean, that's what they do. That's what people do. You move on. You make something, you move on from it. You know, we're in just this weird culture where we want everything sold to us twice. So, you know, like, yeah, of course. Although I think a remake, you know, as a fan, I would love to see a remake of the game. But as being practical about it, it probably won't live up to it's not going to live up to anybody's expectations. They know that just going in. It's like you're going to be trying to please an audience that is almost cannot be pleased. Because it's nostalgia driven. That's why what's the big problem with that? It's like people are going to have memories that aren't necessarily correct of that game. Because not everybody is like me and plays the game every couple of years.
And I think it's a financial risk. You're going to have to spend a lot of money.
Dump a lot of money into it, yeah.
Dump a lot of money to remake an existing game. And you're not making a new game.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. So I think there's a risk, and they're saying, well, yeah, of course we're going to get all the hardcore Final Fantasy VII fans that come in and rebuy it, but are we going to get enough new people to justify its existence to remake the money, at the very least, remake the money we put into making it?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I mean, because it's making a game from the ground up. It would be just like making a new IP, a new game. It would be just like making Final Fantasy 15. Like, it would be...
If you really wanted to do it right. I mean, they've had some...
all different assets and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean...
I think they've had some of the older Final Fantasy... regular Nintendo / Famicom, whatever you want to call it. They remade them for, I think, was it the PSP?
Oh,
or maybe the Game Boy Color. I can't remember.
They did Game Boy Advance, and then...
the DS?
The DS, and the PSP did get them as well, I believe. Or at least I know they got
those
like the first couple of them.
Complete remakes of the games. They had new updated graphics and stuff like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, they updated a few things, and then kind of fixed up some battle system problems and stuff like that.
Although I believe that was the first time Final Fantasy 2 and 3 were ever released in America.
Yeah.
Because Final Fantasy 2, the original Final Fantasy 2 in America was Final Fantasy 4.
Yeah.
And the original Final Fantasy 3 in America was Final Fantasy 6.
Mm-hmm. No.
2, 3, and 5 were never shown, and then they finally had that
collection. There was
a collection where it was
Final
Fantasy 5 and 6 on one disc. That was the first time 5, and then 4 and Chrono Trigger on another disc.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Final Fantasy Origins and then Final Fantasy something else. Can't remember.
Yeah.
I used to have them.
And
they're terrible, actually, ports. They're terrible ports.
Well, they were just direct.
Yeah.
They were direct.
there's like ridiculous load times and stuff like that. Like it just didn't play very well.
Yeah, they were pretty much direct ports, except Chrono Trigger had the updated graphics, I think, from the PlayStation version.
Did they?
They did some full motion videos for it.
Yeah, they might have. Because they did FMVs for all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I never completely saw because the iPhone version of Chrono Trigger is
just the Super Nintendo.
Is the same as it's not the Super Nintendo. It's the same one that was on the DS.
Yeah.
And the DS had redone a new translation and some updates, but not the
doesn't have
FMVs.
I think that's only on that disc,
PlayStation
that version of it. So okay, well, to wrap this up, what are your final? Do you have any final thoughts about the Final Fantasy VII and the series in general?
Well, I think it's I think it was a fantastic game. I think Final Fantasy VII. I never played 9, but I heard it was very similar. I really enjoyed both Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII, and I don't know if you're gonna ever see something at least from them compared to those.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But
because it's definitely like a cultural event for some reason for gamers. If you were a gamer,
yeah,
that game was a big deal for some reason, and it opened up that an entire genre to a country that kind of was more of a niche thing before I think 7 came out. Only like really hardcore kind of gamer people that had Super Nintendos were playing those kind of RPGs. I guess my final thoughts of the series, I'm so happy, and still even to this day, so happy that I kind of got a chance to play that game, and especially I got a chance to play it when it came out, and I got to experience it with the rest of culture.
Yep.
It's not something I experienced after the fact or knew everything about already because I had looked at a Wikipedia page or something. Yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, I didn't have to. It was all new and fresh, and I got to experience it with everybody else, it being a new and fresh thing. And beyond that, I got to it kind of introduces me to different types of people and stuff like that, like yourself and everything like that. When we met, we had this kind of understanding of each other without really knowing each other because we were into those kind of games.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to. The real place I really just talked about that game was for a couple years I was on a online chat system, IRC, and that was a pretty big thing, was RPGs and anime in general, but Final Fantasy VII was a big one. I remember. I think that's where I first decided to play the game, was from talking to people on there and then watching my brother play it.
Yeah.
But it was right around that time. So.
Right on. Alright, well that's going to do it for this little special audio cast thing that we just recorded. That's going to do it for I'm Shaun, and thanks Tom for
no problem
hanging out and chatting about Final Fantasy VII, anime, and a plethora of other weird things that we got into. But anyways, thanks for listening everybody, and happy 15th birthday to Final Fantasy VII.
Amen.
Dun, dun, dun.